Alrighty, welcome back to Occult Perspectives. This is the second lesser banishing ritual of the Pentagram video. So if you haven't watched the first one, please go back and watch the first one. We had also, in my last video, compared the banishing ritual with some of the information given in the Saint Germain I am discourses, and there's more of that to come. So if you're really into the Saint Germain stuff, I plan to do a lot more videos on that. That's been my primary study lately. I'm actually writing down, going through all 33 discourses. I'm writing down all the I am statements along with additional notes, and I'm going to do some videos on that later on. Back to the lesser banishing ritual of the Pentagram. We had left off on the last video. My final note was that it's not just a banishing of the physical space, which it does do, but it's a transmutation of the soul. It's the Philosopher's Gold, or the Philosopher's Stone. If any of you have watched Harry Potter, you know all about the Philosopher's Stone. And Nicholas Flamel was even a real character. I don't know much about him, but would actually like to do more research on him. So as you can see, when you start studying these esoteric subjects, it just keeps branching off into different places, and then you're able to expand your studies more and more. I want to jump to a book real quick. Myth, Magic, and Masonry. I believe I had reviewed this in one of my earlier videos, but there was just a short section I wanted to read because it's really cool. It talks about the connection in here between like Masonry, because the lesser banishing ritual of the Pentagram was a ritual created by the members who founded the Golden Dawn, and they were Freemasons. So the guy who wrote this, he really makes like good connections between modern Freemasonry and like the magical practices and such of more ancient times, the mystery schools, the Lucinian mysteries, and others such as that. In some traditions of ceremonial magic, particularly those which were influenced by the work of Eliphas Levi, and Eliphas Levi was a French ceremonial magician and occultist, and I want to say he was the magician for like the king or one of the political leads at the time. Don't quote me on that, but a lot of like the Golden Dawn and all that, it's all connected with Eliphas Levi's works too. He ties into all this stuff. Aleister Crowley was a big-time Eliphas Levi fan, and I think he even believed that he was a reincarnation of Eliphas Levi. But to continue, particularly ceremonial magic, which was influenced by the work of Eliphas Levi, the cardinal points of east, south, west, and north are zoomorphically represented as the ox, lion, eagle, and man, otherwise known as the tetramorph, or the four living creatures of Ezekiel's vision and of John's revelation. And these, of course, can be, it goes on to say it here later. These symbols are commonly thought to represent the zodiacal houses of Taurus, Leo, Scorpio, alternately the eagle or phoenix, and we had gone over that in one of the previous videos. I think that was one of the Hiram Key videos, if I remember right, because it goes over the same theme in there. And Aquarius. So you've got the houses of Taurus, Leo, Scorpio, and Aquarius respectively. Taurus is aligned with Earth and Archangel Uriel. Leo would be fire and Archangel Michael. Scorpio. And the Phoenix is like the final stage of a Scorpio. A Scorpio goes through 3 stages. The Scorpion, he stings at first, and then he becomes the serpent, and then he rises and becomes the phoenix. And that would be associated with Archangel Gabriel and the element of water, and Aquarius. is Archangel Raphael and the element of air. There are myriad other correspondences affixed to this quartet, and that's what I love about the system of just the Kabbalah and all the Golden Dawn stuff, and the Lesser Banishing Ritual of the Pentagrams. It's all such a cohesive unit. It all like blends and works together so well as a spiritual tool. But the other correspondences are the 4 evangelists, the 4 classical elements, as we said, the equinoxes and solstices, the 4 suits of the tarot, and the 4 letters of the tetragrammaton, to name but a few. The 4 living creatures, or cherubim, are referenced heavily in many magical operations, the most common of which is, the Lesser Banishing Ritual of the Pentagram. And here's a little picture of the tetramorph. The Lesser Banishing Ritual of the Pentagram, the Lesser Ritual of the Pentagram, sometimes the Lesser Banishing Ritual of the Pentagram, or for the banishing form, or the Lesser Invoking Ritual of the Pentagram for the invoking, is an original ritual of the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn, and as such was composed by Freemasons, who were also members of the Rosicrucians. It's a mainstay in ceremonial magic and occultism. It's, as we reviewed before, it's a preliminary clearing of the magician's working space, evocation of the 4 archangels to act as sentinels at each of the cardinal points, generally begun with an appendant ritual called the Kabbalistic Cross, which we'll go over that. It's recited in Hebrew. It's the Lord's Prayer. If you go to church, you know it. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory forever and ever. Amen. After the Kabbalistic Cross and the reciting the Lord's Prayer, you form an astral cross, the orienting of the magician within the Etzkheim. I'm not familiar with that term. Elemental pentagrams are then traced. They're earth pentagrams. And there's an invoking one and a banishing one. Usually you want to use the Lesser Banishing Ritual of the Pentagram. The Lesser Invoking Ritual of the Pentagram is not used as often. It's hard to find information on it, and I'm going to be clearing up that in these next couple videos as well. At least what I've found from my research, because that is kind of a confusing topic, it's hard to find information on the Lesser Invoking Ritual of the Pentagram, so we'll get into that. But to continue, the elemental pentagrams are then traced either with the fingers or sometimes with an athame or ceremonial dagger. I recommend using your fingers until you get an athame that you know you're going to use in the future, and you need to take really good care of it. You need to make sure it's in a sacred space and it's not being touched by unwanted influences and such. Treat it as a holy instrument, directing, the God force. And then you trace these pentagrams with the holy names of God. And each one has several correspondences, which we'll go over. But yeah, that covers up all the information we needed in that book. Let me just make sure I got all these. Yeah, I covered everything I wrote in my notes here too. And then when you're doing the Kabbalistic Cross, it's the magician within the tree of life, and vice versa. It would be the point within the circle, which is that astrological symbol for the sun. And we were talking in the last video too about the sign of Horus. That's the sign of the enter. That's the one where you put your right foot kind of in a square position, as you can see there. I hope you can see it. This picture right here, I'm sorry. This picture. He's got his right foot kind of like squared off right there, and then the left one's thrust forward, and then the hands thrust forward into the pentagrams. And I gave a representation of that movement in the last video, so I'm not going to do that again. And then when you thrust forward like that, you pull back and use the sign of silence. I'm trying to see that I make sure I can get it in the video there. There's the sign of silence, which is just the, looks like he's got the right finger pointed up there. It's a little tricky to not be I'm an organized disaster with all these books laying around and all these notes, just trying to bring it all together. Okay, and then this is a great book too, The Golden Dawn by Israel Regardie. This is the complete works of the Golden Dawn. It's all the rituals and such. There was a picture I was trying to show you in the last video too. There's another depiction here of the sign of Horus, or the sign of Hippocrates. And yeah, there it is, these top two pictures right here. So the sign of the Enter, and then the sign of silence. And in this picture, he's using the sign of silence with the left hand, which I'm pretty sure is right. I think there's different versions. And even with the Kabbalistic cross and other parts of this ritual, such as the vibrations, the names and such, there's so many different variants to it that it's hard to say what is right. You know, just do what feels right. And when you vibrate those names and the archangel names correctly, you're gonna know, because you're gonna feel the energy. Okay, it kind of goes on. And there's a huge introduction to this book. It's a whole lot of good information. It's very inspiring for one who's, starting down on the path. But the lesser banishing ritual of the pentagram should be completely mastered before going, once you do learn it, don't go any further for a long, long time, in my opinion anyway. So you've got the relaxation ritual. You do the lesser banishing ritual of the pentagram, and then you can do tarot contemplation or tarot divination if you so feel the need. But don't go on anymore until you've mastered that and you feel comfortable with doing that and making sure that that's really the path that you want to take. They also talk about a ritual called the Rose Cross ritual, which... in this Golden Dawn book, Israel Regardie says that's one of the first ones you learn along with the Lesser Banishing Ritual of the Pentagram, or shortly after. But in Donald Craig's The Modern Magic, this book, that's not until way further down the road that you learn that ritual. And that's it's another ritual of protection, so it would technically be considered white magic, but it's more of an invisibility cloak kind of deal, keeps unwanted influences away. If somebody is really, really looking for you, they're still going to find you, but some kind of more Harry Potter stuff there, the Invisibility Cloak, that he uses really throughout the whole movie series. The Lesser Banishing Ritual of the Pentagram also, in these preliminary rituals before you even really, are a full member, I believe, of the Golden Dawn. It's considered the 0=0 degree, or the neophyte degree in the Golden Dawn. And they have the neophyte degree itself, which would be pretty much the equivalent, I guess, in Freemasonry of the entered apprentice degree. The neophyte degree is what it's called in the Golden Dawn. And gosh, while we're on that topic for just a second, I'm going to deviate real quick. There's a tarot card. If you know the tarot card, the Hierophant, or the Hierophant, that would be the equivalent of a worshipful master in the lodge. And in this book, it takes you through the whole degree of the neophyte in the Golden Dawn. And if there's a YouTube video actually too, that's a virtual, I think it's a virtual representation of that. Also too, before I forget, I found a YouTube video today that really kind of displays the Lesser Banishing Ritual of the Pentagram in a cool way. I don't really prefer the way the guy vibrates the god names and such, and he does some of the hand motions a little bit differently, but that's okay. It still gives you a pretty good idea of the Merkabah form of protection that would put around you, because at the end it's kind of cool. It's all black, and then you just see this circle of protection. So I think this can kind of go hand in hand with the Saint Germain and the I Am stuff. He's talking about all this magic circle of protection. It's like this white aura. It's this white aura and a ring. He calls it the mighty electronic belt, and it's like this aura of protection that's always around us. So as long as we're making sure that we're pulling, from ultimate God source, and it'd be that Christ consciousness, that Kether, bright source energy, is like the highest thing, we can kind of conceive in that. At the beginning, when you do the, wow, I just had a brain fart. When you do the Kabbalistic cross, you're pulling from Kether, as we mentioned in earlier videos. So I'm going to go ahead and, while I've got this Golden Dawn book, kind of explain. This is the only book I can find that explains the lesser invoking ritual of the pentagram fairly well. And what it is it just shows you that the formulation of the pentagram is different. And you do the sign of silence with the banishing ritual of the pentagram, but you don't with the invoking. So it says here, the Kabbalistic cross would be the same. Making the air towards the east, the invoking pentagram is shown in the picture, and I'll show you how to make one here in a minute. Bringing the point of the dagger to the center of the pentagram, vibrate the name, imagining that your voice carries forward to the east, and then you just hold the dagger out before you and you go to the next pentagram point, instead of pulling back and doing the sign of silence, as you would in the lesser banishing ritual of the pentagram. So that seems to be the main difference. And that's really the only thing that I can find that seems to and everything else stays the same. They recommend in this that the invoking ritual should be used in the morning and the banishing in the evening. I can see that, because the invoking ritual, if you're not ready for it, you need to make sure you're in a good mental state if you're going to be doing the invoking, because it really draws things to you. You're going to feel your energy amplified and maybe not as relaxed, whereas the banishing ritual is more of a cleansing away rather than a bringing forces in. The lesser banishing ritual of the pentagram, I recommend in conjunction with, you need to be doing the middle pillar ritual as well with that, which is more of an invoking ritual. So I recommend, like I said, I'll show you how to do the invoking and the banishing, how to trace them. But the invoking, it's the same as the lesser banishing ritual of the pentagram, but instead of pulling back and doing the sign of silence, you just continue to trace. Basically, from what it says in here, you just continue to trace the circle around. It says in here, when you're doing the lesser banishing ritual of the pentagram, imagine the thing that if there's anything that's bothering you, just imagine it projected outside of the pentagram, outside of the star, and being pushed away, to the ends of the universe, just away. Protecting your space, claiming your God dominion, the I Am presence. So I think the two can really kind of actually work well together the more I've meditated on it. As long as you remain in that I Am rather than thinking that it's something outside of yourself. It is a reflection kind of deal, the higher laws trump the lower laws, but it is also all connected to. Okay, let me go ahead and show you the different signs. I showed you the sign of the Enterer in the first lesser banishing ritual of the pentagram video. So after you do that, you go forward like that, so so, and then in the lesser banishing ritual of the pentagram, you pull back and do the sign of silence with your left hand. Now in the invoking, as I said, you just continue to keep going around. Lost my spot there for just a second. Okay, so now we're going to go over on the tracing of the pentagrams. We want to start on your left hip. this is the banishing one. So I think with the camera, it's going to look like this is actually my right side, I think. But this is actually my left side, or maybe it will be the left on the camera if it's reversed. And then this is the right-hand side right here. And you can find other videos, but this is a point of reference. And then I find it easiest to just pull, back the camera up just a little bit more. I find it easiest just to pull it up right in front of you, like right where your field of vision is, right where your third eye would be, and then come down to the end of the other hip right here. So hip, up, here, across like so, and then come back and connect it right here. And then you go ahead and project the energy like I showed you before, and do the sign of silence. That was the, sorry, I forgot to show you. That was the banishing one. The invoking one starts up here. So again, third eye, distance, or frame of reference, and you actually come down to the left. So this is the left side, left hip. Come down to the hip, come up to the right, across, and down here, and connect. So, boom, 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 and then come back up. I forgot to come back to the top and connect it where the third eye connection was. So hopefully that helps clear up any confusion about the difference between the two. I recommend working on the banishing, lesser banishing first. You don't really need to work on the invoking yet. But once, if you feel like you need the extra energy and you learn how to do it properly, then go ahead and do that. But your best bet is going to be the lesser banishing ritual, the pentagram, and then learning the middle pillar too. And then you can use the invoking as needed. Okay, going back to modern magic here real quick. Okay, we just went over the formulation of the pentagrams. And he goes in here in this book in detail about all this extra stuff. You just need a space to be alone. You can even go in the bathroom if you need to. I find that the best space for any kind of meditation or practices is in the woods or outside. You're just able to feel the energy so much more, and particularly if the sun's out, you can just draw so much energy from that and being outside in nature. He says to a lot of people have an altar. This is definitely optional because a lot of people just don't have the room. But it adds a lot of power to the ritual because there's a lot of symbolism that goes with it. There's two cubes on top of each other, so it's the as above, so below, and it's the earth plane. And a lot of people paint theirs black because this cube represents the earth plane. Candles, I recommend candles. You can turn the light off and or burn sage or frankincense or whatever it is, incense that you want to use. Also, for purity and cleansing your energy, go ahead and take a ritual bath if you have that capability. And then just imagine the negative energy going down the drain. Going back to the altar and the candles, use white candles for it's a good start because it represents purity, also richness and abundance. Any incense that appeals to you, as I said. You can use bells, I guess. I don't use any kind of bells. I will use, I had in the background here some tones going on, but the laptop died. I like to play some tones if I'm doing meditation or any practices. He says in here too to have like a chair sitting in front of the altar. So you'll see in the picture here, like your chair actually sits behind the altar, and then you go to the other side, like on the east side. There's the east, west. And yeah, you're actually standing like on the east side facing the east. But once again, I think this is optional. he also talks about like wearing magical clothes and such, like a robe. I prefer, you are in the presence of the divine, so I'd recommend, being in good condition, being clean, and remembering that you are, in the presence of that. I don't think it's necessary to have a robe. I think it makes a more powerful impression upon the subconscious, though, for sure. Your athame, as we said before, if you want one, it's not going to be the same as the air dagger, which is like the elemental tools. Like there's the fire wand and the air dagger. That's like way down the road. That's more advanced. I don't have as much knowledge on that stuff from experience. I just that's some of the higher grades of stuff, and if you're really going to go down that, the further studies and stuff, you got to make sure, that you set aside the time to do those practices, and you need to understand why you're doing these things. You need to make sure it's for a benevolent reason, usually to work on yourself, I would say is the number one reason, so that we can be better people, not only love ourselves, but express that out into the world. I think I've covered everything for the preparation. So I'm going to go ahead and show you the Kabbalistic cross real quick, and then we're probably going to end this video after that. Yeah, that seems like a good spot. Actually, there's a couple notes here too. When you're drawing the pentagrams, you want to envision them. I don't know that I mentioned that. Is these like flaming blue, almost, they describe it like jet fire blue flames. If you need to know where like northeast, west, and south is, you can just use like a compass app on your phone or something, and then use like any kind of marker you want, like on the ground or wherever, just that way you know which direction. Maybe you could even use stones. I never even thought about that. Going over some of these, making sure I'm covering everything. Also on your altar, the tarot cards go on the altar too. The major arcana face down so that they're ready. You do the relaxation ritual in the chair before you get up, like I showed you in that picture, and go around to the east. You face the east and you're standing there, or if you're just in a room, you can just rotate. You don't even have to walk around in the circle. You can literally just pivot like in each compass direction and just turn around. But yeah, okay. You imagine getting larger above the room. This is after the relaxation ritual. Kind of like in your God presence form or your higher self. You rise above the house you're in, you rise above the city, the continent, the earth, the planets, the galaxy, the universe, the multiverse, all realms, through all the different higher spheres, all the way to source, as close as you can get. Christ consciousness, and you pull it down. So you envision the white light up there. You pull it down, go. Ata. Let me stand up. And you pull it down. Mauku Vigbora Vigdula Leolam Amen. That wasn't my best vibration. I can be a lot louder, but I don't want to be too loud in here. I've got my dad in here, but I like being out in the woods because I can just vibrate that as loud as I want to. But the Ata for thine is Malkut, the kingdom and the power and the glory forever and ever. Amen. As you're doing this, imagine the white beam from Kether, source, coming down through you, all the way through, activating this white glow. All your chakras are activated. You are like the tree of life. And then when you tap your right shoulder, the light of the cross goes out through that side, and the light of the cross, when you touch your left shoulder, goes out to that side. I always thought it was opposite of what we learned in church. You know, when we did this, it was left to right. But in this, it's right to left. And then you kind of form your fingers up like this. Leolam. And then you put your fingers kind of like this. Amen, when you say that. And that kind of seals the energy. And then you go forth, which we'll cover in the next video, with the formulation of the pentagrams. And if you have an athame, you can just kind of like hold it up into a point right here. So your athame will be pointed up and then a point down, and you just kind of touch your shoulder, not too hard. Right, left. Hold it in the middle here, and then kind of like point it up if you can, like towards the sky. But you always keep it like vertical, like that. All right. I think I've covered everything I wanted to for this video. Let me just kind of look over here real quick. Yep. Yeah, that pretty much covers it. Alrighty. So, yeah, the next video might be the third part in this series. I might go back to Saint Germain stuff. I might cover morals and dogma. We'll see. So, until then, take care. Thank you for watching my videos. Please comment if you like the material. Let me know. Feel free to share your information. We can get discussion going. Thank you, and take care.